Call this workshop meeting to order with the San Marcos City Council and the San Marcos Housing Authority. Today is Thursday, March 27th of 2025. It is 5:45. Ms. Trevino, would you call the roll for both groups, please?
Ms. Rodriguez. Here. Mr. Saul Gonzalez. Ms. Garza. Mayor Houston.
Here.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Mendoza.
Here.
Mr. Lorenzo Gonzalez.
Here.
The Housing Authority Commissioners, Ms. Thompson. Here. Ms. Alexis Adams.
Here.
Ms. Hull. Ms. Woodvizu. Here. Thank you, and Ms. Schwartz. We have a quorum present.
Okay, if you'll read item 1, please.
Hold a discussion regarding the programs and services provided by and the associated operations and processes of the San Marcos Housing Authority and provide direction as appropriate.
Ms. Reyes? Are you kicking us off on this one, or who is?
This is really just a work session that was requested by City Council and follow up to a December work session that was held regarding the Housing Authority. So we provided the questions that was asked by council. And so the Housing Authority has those. And so this is really just about dialogue in regard to some of the questions that council had. Thank you.
So we don't have anyone assigned to lead this discussion?
No, it's really just meant to be conversation.
I'm sorry. I missed citizen comment. We will have citizen comment now. Ms. Diana Baker, if you will come and find one of those microphones to use. My apologies for missing that step.
Okay, I'm here just to plant a seed, hopefully. I hope I'm in the right place. Anyway, I assume that you all are here to try to come up with creative ideas for housing, especially low-income housing. I want to remind you that every month, a request for demolition is received by the city asking someone, whether a property owner or developer, to demolish an old or historic house. San Marcos has an abundance of old houses, but they're rapidly disappearing along with our history. Any house built before 1945 likely contains priceless and non-renewable materials. The old growth wood that they are constructed with is gone. The old houses can be moved for a fraction of what it would cost to build another structure. The people who renovate old houses are almost always local craftsmen, so old houses provide local jobs. Besides being built with priceless materials and handmade works of art, basically, these old houses were built to high standards and are very solid. They can easily be repurposed. State and federal preservation grants are available to income-producing properties, and they would finance at least half, more like 60% of the expenses that would go into renovating and restoring a house. Additionally, other doors might open for additional funding for affordable housing partners or even waste-related grants these days. People have established that they don't want all of this old material going into the landfill. And so there's grants out there for that as well. The good news is that the city doesn't have to do this. There are already investors and developers that do this nationwide, and they're taking advantage of all these things. What the city would have to do is find them and maybe incentivize them a little bit. But certainly, once these old houses are fixed, they're fixed and they're ready to go for the next generation at least. They're not built like poorly built. There's a lot of really bad construction going up these days, but these are well done. So they still have life in them. They have housed generations before us and can continue to house future generations. They don't deserve to end up in the landfill. Please consider recycling what we already have. Go find the developers. Thank you.
Ms. Wagner, you provided a lot of information for us that was in the packet. Would you like to cover some of that information and lay some groundwork for us? But I have one request to start with. I may have others, is that when we're talking about housing that you provide, that's one conversation. And when it's Section 8, it's another conversation. and not get things mixed up back and forth. And when we're talking about a waiting list, because last time we kind of, and it may be, maybe our fault, we may have asked some questions. But so, there were a couple of times when I thought you were still talking about this and found out, oh no, you were talking about this. And then I had no idea in my notes where to put which was which. And I know they're different processes. So whichever one you want to start with is fine, but let's just make sure. And if we ask you a question and it's for the other, just say that's for the other. I'll get back to that. Okay? Just so everybody's clear.
So basically is what I did, to start. My name is Lana Wagner. I'm Executive Director of the San Marcos Housing Authority.
Would you pull that
Um,
microphone closer?
Sorry,
Like, really?
really close? I can be loud
Even
sometimes.
closer.
Okay. So I received questions from council on kind of what we went over our last meeting, believe in December, and we went back and answered some of your questions. So I believe y'all have the information in front of you. So I numbered them. If maybe we can start with that and go, would that be okay to do that? So the first question that was asked, would like to know whose lane it is to, or what are the channels of providing feedback?
Okay, I'm sorry. You're in a different document from the one I thought you were in. I'm in the answers to the questions. I'm sorry, the program information that you provided to us. It was some, I've got that. Basically, it's how your programs work,
Basically what? I'm sorry.
how your programs work.
Okay,
When you decide to put out the waiting list, how the waiting list works.
okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. It's something I think that came from y'all, but it's in all caps.
It's this one?
Yes.
No. It's what's in the packet that was posted.
It's in the packet that was posted. All right.
I think it's the information you had provided to us once before.
Right, it is. Okay, okay.
You have a copy of that?
I do.
It's the one Mr. Bizu.
That one, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I've got it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's start with public housing. We have 287 public housing, which is owned by the Housing Authority, and they are Allen Woods. We have located at 1201 Thorpe Lane. We have 123 units there, apartments there. CM Allen, which is located at 801 River Road. We have 100 apartments there. Chapultepec Apartments at 701 South LBJ. We have 30 units there. Porter, located at 1235 West MLK. We have 8 apartments there. And then we have 26 scattered site homes throughout San Marcos. That is our public housing properties. First of all, in order to get into public housing, we have a waiting list. You were by bedroom size from 1 to 5 bedroom. You have to come in, pick up an application, fill it out, turn it in. We enter you into our waiting list, which whatever you qualify, depending on the family size. If you're one person, you qualify for a 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, so on and so forth. Families, depending on how many, it's usually 2 per bedroom. So our bedroom sizes again are 1 through 5. We enter you into our waiting list by bedroom size. And then as a vacancy becomes available, then we send a letter out to see if you're interested in housing still. You come in, you're interviewed. If you're approved, depending on, we go by criminal background check. And if you're approved or denied, then, if you're approved, you're offered the unit. And if you're denied, then you're off the waiting list. So that's our public housing. Is there any questions on our public housing? Yes, sir.
Yes, my question is,
Get the microphone and get right close to it. Otherwise, other people can't hear you.
Thank you. My question is on the public housing. Is there a way that the most needy can get moved up to front of the list, or y'all stay with that list?
We stay with the list. Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we're
And-
audited by that too.
okay. And employees from the housing authority, are they moved up or stay where they're at?
So, and. ask the que-
Employees,
The boy,
employees,
oh, employees, they have to apply just like everyone else.
and they don't get moved up?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay,
No.
then,
And I do want to state, can I mention this, is we do have a preference of Hayes County on our public housing waiting list.
okay,
So
But-
meaning that everyone in Hayes County gets housed before outside Hayes County.
okay, it's not only San Marcos doesn't take priority then, it's Hayes County first?
Right, that is correct. Hayes County.
Okay, yeah, I always thought it was San Marcos residents, and then it would go to Hayes County
Right.
and then wherever else it goes to.
You have
Yeah.
to be within Hayes County.
Okay. Well, that was the question of if someone was really needy and something came up and they didn't have a place to live and you all just get, making exceptions to the rule, but,
No, sir.
okay,
No, sir. We have policies, rules and regulations that we have to go by. And to us, everybody who comes and applies for housing is in need for a housing.
right, right. Well, thank you for the answer. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's not a waiting list in that there's a call for applications. You'll take applications anytime, correct?
Our one bedroom waiting list is closed at this time because you can get so many on the wait.
That's not the question. You
Oh.
take applications at any time? Like,
Yes, we
like
do,
for another
yes.
program, you only take applications at a certain time, but for public housing, you take applications all year long?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And is the average wait still a couple of years?
Yes,
Okay. And I saw in your other information that ever so often you'll communicate with folks, see if you still want to be on the list, et cetera.
yes.
And do people's needs ever change? Maybe they need a 3-bedroom now, but
Yes.
someone's grown and gone and, they can get by with a smaller one or whatever.
Typically, if they add someone to their household or someone leaves, then they have to come in and change.
Amend their
So if
application.
it goes to a different bedroom size, then that puts them on a different
Right.
waiting list. So it might push them up or it might push them down.
Right. Yeah.
So-
Could be different.
Right.
I think that's all I have right now. Ms. Garza has some questions.
Okay.
So that actually brought up another question, but my original question, so we have 1 through 5 bedrooms. So do we in theory have like 5 waiting lists? Depending on your
correct.
bedroom size?
Yes. Yes.
So a single person, like in a hypothetical, a 2-bedroom becomes available, but the top spot on a single has been waiting longer than the top spot on someone on the 2-bedroom waiting list. That person, the 2-bedroom would still get the room first because that's what became available?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. And then my other question based on what Mayor just asked, if someone's family size changes, either grows or shrinks, and they switch lists, do they go to the bottom of the list or do they get, based on their date of original application, get put
The date-
somewhere in the?
Yes, the date of the application, yes.
All right,
We'll
cool.
put them in line there. Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, just as a point of clarification, is because I know that we've received questions from some of you, and I know that sometimes the public may not always understand the role of council and the role of the Housing Authority Board and the role of HUD in regulating. So just want to clarify that. I know Mr. Aguirre sent some information earlier and Mr. Montgomery's here as well. But the understanding that we have is that council appoints the Housing Authority Board. You have the oversight for appointment and removal of the Housing Authority Board members. But as far as the operations and oversight of the Housing Authority, that is the HUD, the Housing and Urban Development. So that is who actually oversees and audits their programs. It is not the city of San Marcos.
However, it's an issue that is important for affordable housing for our community members. And so that's where this is more information sharing in regard to that. If there is a problem with the way that the program is, if there's concerns about the way the program's being run, then that goes to the board or it goes to the Housing and Urban Development Office for them to look into to make sure that all requirements are being met. So I just wanted to make sure and clarify because I asked Mr. Aguirre and Ms. Trevino because of some of the questions that have been received by that we should be doing more with this. If we get a concern, if we get a question about something with the Housing Authority, if it's in our realm, then we will look into it. For example, if it's a code enforcement issue or something like that. But if it's about how they are running their programs, that is not within
Yeah.
our area or scope of operation. So
Thank you. We
I
should have
just wanted to
started with
clarify
that.
So just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that that was
Yeah, then
clarified.
feedback.
I'm sorry, I have one other question.
Microphone.
I'm sorry, I have another question. I might have plenty throughout this meeting. And the reason being, I want the public to be able to hear what we're talking about. And another question that was brought up at the last meeting was several years ago, 30 years ago, the Housing Authority made an agreement with the people that were going to live in those separate structures. And after 5 years, they were going to be able to own or be able to buy those structures. Can you just give us some more light on that?
I believe I sent that information.
But this is for the public to
Okay.
hear.
Those 26 scattered site homes are in public housing that we did not sell them. They are under HUD, the public housing. So I don't have anything to where there was an agreement that they were going to sell
Those homes.
those
are-
homes, the 26 scattered site homes.
Okay, because I think myself and Mr. Scott remember those
Okay.
letters that y'all send out.
Been a different program.
Yeah, and I did go back. I did go back to the books way back and I still have them pulled out. And it shows in 95 where HUD put them on our public housing rent roll. And they've been there since, on our rent roll since 95 under public housing.
Right.
So
Okay. One other question, and the reason I'm not trying to nitpick or nothing like that, but if we're giving so much money, losing our tax revenue,
okay,
I think we should have a big say-so how things are run.
I'm
Uh,
gonna address that.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Oh, okay. Burton. I'm done for now.
So if y'all will let me know that you want to speak, and I will call on you when it's your
Gotcha.
turn.
Yeah, I just going back to Stephanie's commentary, I find it curious and worth exploring further because based on conversations that I've had and information that I've received, what my understanding is that it's different from yours. So it would be helpful to perhaps get something written out on y'all's understanding of the different, I guess, responsibilities and like oversight, so that we can loop in representatives from HUD, because yeah, I think there's like a disconnect in the understanding of everybody's responsibilities. My understanding is that HUD's regulatory capacity is very limited to a handful of things, and the rest falls on the board or like who we appoint.
Who you appoint?
So yeah, I think if I could hop on a time machine, I would have suggested we bring a representative from HUD. I think that that perspective is necessary. This conversation's incomplete without it. And then back to a question that I have for you is, This attachments that we got, what? It appears to be a part of a larger document. What document is this from?
What, I don't know what you're looking at. Could you give me the heading?
So this, with the big font, right? So we
Oh.
got a packet
Okay, right.
and it goes from big font scan
Uh-huh.
to a whole bunch of other.
Okay.
It's very discombobulated, right? So it goes from 18 out of 191 to, you know,
That is
42 out of 308.
It's information that we pulled from our policies for public housing and Section 8.
Cool. Can we
And you can
get-
have the whole policy.
Yeah, I think that
Okay,
would be
that would be great.
beneficial. I do appreciate you pulling what you found like to be most related to our questions though. And then the other question I have, I think it's perhaps for the board and yourself, which of like the HUD resources have y'all used or found beneficial when it comes to shaping your policies? Specifically the public housing occupancy guidebook. Have y'all found that to be helpful?
It's HUD regulations, it's 24 CFR. You can look that up on the HUD website,
Mhm.
and it's basically the policies, the rules and regulations.
So the public housing occupancy guidebook, is that a document that you all have explored? The one that has like best practices? This one appears to be updated January of 2025.
We get our rules and our policies come from HUD.
Okay.
I have a,
Oh, ask your I mean, if,
it's marinating, it's stewing.
We as a committee are still reviewing that. But as far, we're very much interested in knowing the regulations because we also have questions as far as what we can do to help better our community, especially with the economy is right now. We're gonna have an influx of people signing up for affordable housing, and we want to beat that before it actually comes.
I didn't mean no disrespect. I'm like,
That's okay.
let me
That's
fit what
okay.
it- Right, yeah, like, these questions are excluded.
that's okay, yeah.
I actually have a question to expand on what was just mentioned regarding the policy that was shared with us. I understand that the governing body is HUD, but I kind of was wanting to get an idea because I know this policy was created by a private consulting company.
Milrod.
Okay. And so I wanted to know of what's included in this policy. I would imagine we wouldn't need a private consulting company if we were just going to copy and paste HUD's policies. So of the policies that exist in this document, is there a chance that any of these policies are outside of the requirements of HUD and more so something that, the Housing Authority wanted to do on its own?
Typically is what Nelrod does is they create our policy by HUD's rules and regulations, the 24 CFR.
So in your opinion, it would be correct to say that what we're reading here is probably copy and paste of
That
HUD?
is correct.
Okay. And then, I know the complications as far as the governing and such, but we had a lot of discussion last time as it related to the waiting list that was opened. And so I kind of wanted to ask a couple questions just on y'all's practices and so I can get a better understanding. So I saw within this policy that an applicant has to, here it is, applicants on the waiting list shall contact the Public Housing Authority every 6 months to confirm interest, qualifications, and application renewal. And so I kind of wanted to break that scenario apart because I know that to not respond could lead to being removed off of this list. And so how does that work? I mean, I know there's extenuating circumstances, but is the person expected to call in every 6 months and share that interest?
Okay, yes. This is for public housing and Section 8 both. You're responsible, and it's told from the very beginning when you fill out that application and turn it in and are on the waiting list, you have to call in and update your status every 6 months, because people move on. If they don't if they find other housing, then they go separate ways and their name just stays on the list. So if they're no longer needing housing, then we take them off our list.
So, okay, let's talk about a scenario then using the 6
Okay.
month shot clock.
Okay.
Okay. If I apply January 1st,
Mhm.
6 months from now, am I expected to contact y'all or let's see, January, February, March, April, May, June, what, June, July? June? Am I expected to contact y'all June 1st,
6 months.
July 1st. Yeah.
July 1st?
Oh, 6 months. Yeah.
Okay, so if
Yeah,
I don't
February,
contact
April,
y'all
May,
on that
Yeah.
exact day I applied on,
Yeah.
what type of leeway? I mean, I see
Well,
that,
You usually have at least a 7-day grace
Okay.
period was what we do. Yeah.
okay. Dun-dun. And then, so I know that just looking at national news right now, the director of HUD made a comment following something that Donald Trump had sent out regarding the sharing of information for potential non-citizens that may be in public housing.
Mhm.
Have y'all received any news or word or memo from the federal government about this?
We received a document on, yes, from HUD. Stating about the
And
non-citizens.
when was that document
So,
received?
Ms.
I-
Wagner, would you just move that microphone so that you don't have to turn away from us to talk and just move it
Just
so
move
that
it.
you can talk to us and
Okay,
talk into the microphone
yeah.
at the same time?
I don't recall the
You
date.
need to be closer.
I don't, yeah. I don't have the date on that.
Within like a week,
Uh,
less than?
no, it's.
Because this
it-
was pretty recent.
Yeah.
Could we have that shared with
Sure.
us?
Mhm.
And then regarding the purging of the waiting list. So I know that, let's see, the PHA may update or purge, what they refer to as purge, its waiting list at least every 12 months in order to remove the names. Is this something y'all do on an annual basis? It's not a shall, so.
Yes, we do. Our maintenance on our waiting list. Yes, we do maintenance on our waiting list.
Okay. And again, it says if an applicant does not respond, I saw that the postmark date, applicants will have 7 calendar days from the postmark date
Okay.
to respond.
Mhm.
What are some extenuating circumstances that y'all take account for aside from, I see disability and those things, but just something, some scenario that's actually you've experienced
On what?
as far as like being late to respond?
Okay.
If maybe,
Well-
maybe I lost my phone, maybe I lost, you know.
I mean, everybody is treated the same. We can't, you'll be dropped from the waiting list. If you do not respond, you have 7 days to turn around.
For your internal policy?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is where I wanted to distinguish
okay.
between
That's-
what's HUD and what's
Uh-huh.
y'all, because
Okay.
it's not clear in the document what
Okay.
is HUD, required by HUD.
Okay.
And so it'd be easier, you know, because the commission's here, to better understand their role and maybe making this a little bit more equitable. But if the 7 calendar days is in fact required by HUD, I understand, you know, hands may be tied at that point, but.
Okay.
Ms. Rodriguez, can I jump in with a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you say that you're notifying people by letter. Right.
Mhm.
How many letters do you send out in a week? 2, 12, 50?
Depending on when we're doing the maintenance, sometimes we do everybody who's on the waiting list. We send out letters if you're still interested in housing.
Okay, here's my concern.
Okay.
If I'm looking for housing, public housing, I may be couch surfing. Right. This is my address today.
Okay.
It's not my address 6 months from now.
Right.
So my question is, do y'all ever call? I understand treating everyone the same. So my question would be, do you call? Because people are more likely to have the same phone than the same address.
Yes, we do both. We call. It's mandatory that we mail out,
I get that.
but it's a courtesy and we call also.
Okay. Good to know. Could have led with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good question because as far as the outreach is concerned, according to this policy, they just continue to refer to it as reasonable contact.
Okay.
You know, in statute, that's a very difficult thing to determine. What may be reasonable to me may be reasonable, different to somebody else. If I believe on top of the 7 calendar days, that 5 days may be reasonable. So that's why there's a little bit of ambiguity as to how much leeway is truly offered. And the mayor makes a good point. Housing insecurity very much looks different. That could be couch surfing.
Okay.
And I mean, there's still facts as a method of contact. And so a lot of things in this policy are so antiquated.
Yeah.
I've never had a fax machine or sent a fax. But in order to stay on this waiting list, that's one of the few options that's given to me to confirm my interest.
Right.
So. But again, I don't know what of this is HUD versus.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding this 24 CFR on the HUD site. I'm finding references to it. I'm trying to find the full policy and I'm not able to do that.
It's a big policy, yeah.
Okay. So the preference for Hayes County, is that a San Marcos rule or is that a HUD rule?
It's a HUD rule.
Okay, good.
HUD sets out that you can have different preferences, and we chose Hayes County.
So what are the other options?
I don't have them in front of me.
So HUD
What-
gives you options.
Right.
You have to choose one of them.
You don't have to.
Okay.
You don't have to have Hayes County as preference.
Well, I just said, is that a HUD rule?
It's one of the listing of preferences that we can have.
So that particular one is not a HUD rule, but there are options and y'all have chosen the Hayes County
Correct.
option.
Correct. Yes.
So, and how long has it been that way? Forever?
Yes.
Next to
As
forever?
long as, yes.
So do we know, I guess it's gonna be a silly question, why would it not be San Marcos instead of Hayes County?
I can't.
Can it be changed?
I know, and let's go over to section 8 because
We're
section,
not talking about section 8 right now.
but
We can talk about it again when we get
Okay.
to section 8, but we're talking about the housing that y'all provide.
the housing that we provide, I guess it could be changed. I'm not, I can't say no.
So under the policy y'all shared with us, as it relates to local preferences, it says the PHA may, but is not required to, establish a system of local preferences for selection of families admitted to the HCV program. It doesn't say though, county, local municipality, so it sounds like it may very much well be in plausible according to that.
Well, you're talking section 8, so
The HCV program?
that's
Mhm.
section 8. We're talking public
Yeah,
housing.
we're talking public housing now.
Yeah.
We'll go through section 8 shortly, but I was asking about public housing. So all those answers still the same? Still correct? Okay. Okay.
So your question is, can it be just for San Marcos? Okay. Could it be changed? Yeah,
With chatting with some of my colleagues from other municipalities, they shared with me their housing authorities, like annual and 5-year plans. Is that something that y'all do as well? Is it required? And if so, is it public facing? Because what I was sent were links to the public facing plans of other municipalities. I could just be a terrible Google searcher, but I did not find those online.
San Marcos Housing Authority does not have it online. We are responsible for our 5-year plan and our annual plan, yes.
So can you explain to me I guess the interactions or the role that the board has when it comes to those plans? Like, do they review them? Do they, like what role and feedback do they have, and where in the timeline do they jump in to give their?
When the 5-year plan is done, I then present it to the board. When we go through the process with the company that we use, Nelrod. And then the final say is from the board. They review it.
So they don't shape it before the um, consulting firm messes with it.
No.
Okay. I guess this is like for the board, I don't know who, I'm just gonna ask a question. We'll see who has the answer, if there's an answer. What type of training does the board get to understand all the resources out there so that they can best be empowered with the tools that they need to bring their super valuable like neighbor perspective to the process? So earlier I asked about the public housing occupancy guidebook. I went down a rabbit hole. This is fascinating. In the HUD website, they have links to like so many like resources, but I mean, it's a lot. Like if you don't know kind of like how to narrow it down, I would imagine it would be very overwhelming. And so I'm wondering like other municipalities, their housing authorities have like a little training, like these are, let's review our last 5-year plan, let's review our internal policies, like an onboarding process, I guess. So yeah, I'm curious, like what all tools exist for our council appointed board members to best do their job?
We do have training out there. We have with Nelrod, we have with FADA. They do commissioner trainings. And they are able to go. They have online training also that provides them information on how the housing authority, the operations of the housing authority and the roles of the council members or board members.
And so I guess for the or I guess they're called commissioners, right? Okay. I would like to hear if you guys have any feedback or any like glows and grows on that process. Like, is there anything that stuck out that was particularly helpful or anything that like, oh, I wish I knew this or that? And I ask because like, I don't think we've ever had another, like an opportunity for us to engage with y'all. I mean, I know several of you personally, and I know you have a heart for our community and all of that, but I also know a lot of y'all, you know, you work full time, you have home responsibilities and all that. So I'm just like wondering, what are the glows and the grows and what else might you find helpful so that you know, can contribute best?
Hey, so let me see if I can do this. That was a lot of questions, so I'll do my best to kind of like sparse through it.
Sorry.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Tamara Thompson. I've been on the board since last February. I'm a former resident of Chapultepec Homes. So definitely the Housing Authority has my interest. So to kind of start off, I know as a new board member, when I came on, I was given some packet material. We discussed Nelrod, and it's as board members are cycled. So you come in, you plug, you're a plug, you fill a seat, you kind of get acclimated and kind of go from there. I haven't personally been able to do any of the Nelrod like training, travel. I understand that there's opportunities to travel, to go to conferences and things like that. So, and clearly I'm not a subject matter expert, either over housing authority or municipals or HUD. So it's definitely a pretty high, I think, learning curve. Lana seems to do a really good job of presenting us with the information that we need to try to make as informed choices as possible. I am aware of like where to go to look for resources and things like that, but I definitely just lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine.
But I would just like to say that, yeah, it, like you said, it is really overwhelming. There's so much going on here. There's so many moving parts. And we're trying to do the best we can to serve as many folks as possible at one time. There's never enough affordable housing. Surprise. So yeah, we've been definitely trying to like look at the big picture of San Marcos, the community as a whole, as it's changing, what growth looks like, what our needs are, things like that, and trying to see how we can like tweak and leverage what we currently have. So yeah, it's a process. I know myself, every board meeting, I'm learning something new because there is just so much, and I've been on the board a year and there's a lot to jump into. So anyway, that's all I have to add on that.
Hi, I'm Jessica Urbizu. My first meeting was actually this past Tuesday. I just came into this role as of the 4th. Oh, yeah. But I got selected in. And you know, coming in, it is a shock. It's a culture shock because you're pushed into the lion's den of so much information. But at the same time, you come with a drive, just like many of y'all come with a drive to help our fellow neighbor and community to make sure that they all get the necessities that they need as well. And a few of the documents that Lana had given us this past week was updates to what the housing authority, as far as what the people that live, the residents have to go by, like assistance, animal assistance. And then also what HUD is expected of us annually as far as their inspections go. And so that was refreshing to know that, making sure like annually everything is checked and that there's nothing wrong. Or I mean, if there is, residents are encouraged to report it immediately. And I find that very fascinating. And like I said earlier, we're engaging with each other to try to get more housing for the community.
Hi, my name is Ashley Schwan, and I am also a board commissioner. So just a little, on my role in housing. So I'm actually a tenant in housing. And the reason I wanted to join the board is because I wanted to fill the gap between like my own community with San Marcos Housing Authority, because a lot of tenants in our community don't know that there's certain resources for their families or for their kids or for the elderly, such as, having emotional support animals, utility assistance, there's just different resources that they're not aware of. But me being on the board, I'm able to gather information and bring it back to our people in the community, as well as give information on the necessities for applications, what kind of documents they'll need. So I grew up in housing, not only in San Marcos, but in Chicago. And I try to give back to my community, but I think the best way of doing that is to have front row, with a resource that I know could be there for the people. So that's my role here. And I've also taken advantage of the resources that's available for me and my family, such as the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. It's a 5-year program where you set a goal, and the goal is to be out of housing and be self-sufficient, which is what I'm doing. I'm in my 5th year, which is the end of the program. And I'm graduating from Texas State in May. Thank you. And on honors. And but I'm thankful for San Marcos Housing Authority, because without their resources or the housing itself, I did it without housing before, and my pockets were empty. I was struggling. My lights were cut off with my 3 children. And since I got into housing, like the resources available to me and my kids, it's been a blessing. And I'm moving on to grad school, but I'm thankful for San Marcos Housing Authority. Yeah.
My name is Ramika Adams. I am a resident of San Marcos, but I have also been homeless as a child in New Orleans. And then whenever we were able to obtain housing, it was public housing. We called it the projects, the new projects and the old projects is what we called it in a little town in Mississippi that I eventually grew up in. With that being said, my many years of the community assisting us, my family that is, and myself motivated me to be a part of the board to see what I can give and what I can also give to others as I find out the information that is available. So with that being said, I do know that when I joined the board nearing 2 years ago, I have not had like a formal training. I do rely on the resources that are available to us, things that Lana points out to us that we probably weren't aware of. I didn't know about the 5-year program until Ashley joined the board. So just asking and doing entailed information gathering is what I have also appreciated about the board. And it's like Jessica said, a lot of times things come up through conversations at our meetings that sometimes we're not aware of. And Lana is good about explaining to us or even getting the information and writing to us via email or what have you. So for me personally, it's a passion of mine, and also just to, I guess, right the wrong of my youth, hopefully, and some of the citizens, especially the children of San Marcos.
Thank you all for your participation on the board. Sounds like y'all are the right folks to be on there. So we appreciate you taking your time and your talents to provide help for the San Marcos Housing Authority. Council, oh, okay. And, okay, Mr. Gonzalez and then Mr. Gonzalez on this end.
Okay, does Kyle have their own housing authority as well?
Yes, public
And-
housing.
They're not affiliated with us at all. Then a person can apply at both places, and Kyle and San Marcos.
Correct.
Okay. I was just curious if they had their own, and I guess Beta has their own as well, and Hidden Springs and those
they?
are,
Buda does not have public housing.
Who else in Hayes County does?
Kyle, and that's it.
all right, I was just curious if they have their own and they're still applying here and applying there. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Does Kyle have the Hayes County preference?
I don't know. Every housing authority can choose differently.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gonzalez.
So I guess first of all, I kind of want to go back just to, I think I understand this, but just for clarification, the difference between, I guess HUD's regulation, so 24 CFR and, NELROD's ACOP. So the way I'm understanding it is essentially HUD's regulations are statute, literally the Code of Federal Regulations. NELROD essentially turn statute into something closer to plain English and created a template or like a model policy that housing authorities can implement. That being said, does NELROD provide information as, or what areas independent housing authorities can tailor their template? So like, I guess it's easier to explain given my background. So like in policing, there's obviously the state occupation code and penal code and whatever. The Texas Association of Police Chiefs has a model policy and procedure, but in the model that they provide their members, it's actually color coded on what has to stay the way it's written based on statute and where an independent or an individual agency has leeway and what they can change. Does NELROD provide that to y'all as a housing authority? Like in this section, you can implement your own policy as opposed to just what they recommend?
In other words, this has to be done because per HUD's regulations are, it's up to the housing authority. Yes.
Right, yeah, so, okay,
Yeah.
like for one example, so HUD requires, they have a regulation based on, prior evictions, but it only goes back 3 years. But my understanding is that as a housing authority, y'all can go back further. If I understand, NELROD recommends going with the 3 years, but at any point, do they inform y'all that you can extend that? Like, so this is one specific section where you can go past 3 years? Which I'm not recommending we do by any means. That's just one area that I know there is kind of leeway. If you wanted to make stricter regulations, you are able to. Is that made clear by NELROD?
No, yes. NELROD is trained they go to trainings through HUD on the rules and regulations.
I guess my kind of question or concern is, it appears that essentially back in 2015, because that's the last I was able to find that this board adopted a policy. They pretty much just adopted NELROD's recommended policy as written. But
Okay.
my understanding is that NELROD's policy is meant to be a template to be customized. And I'm just wondering why, like, the board didn't customize it at all and just adopted it as written by NELROD.
Yeah. I mean, we can customize it, but there are certain things that we have to go by the rules and regulations. Customize it even more. Am I making sense or?
Yes, you are, I guess. I think I'm not making, I guess my question is, like, does NELROD at any point give you a list of, here's the things that can be changed in our policy? And even though this is what we're recommending, these are the areas where you have independent authority, autonomy to
Yes.
change our recommendation.
Yes.
Does NELROD actually provide a list of
Yes,
where those areas are?
yes.
That was my question.
How often do y'all review those and say, were the decisions that we made 5, 10 years ago still valid? And is there a change that we should make in today's world?
We usually, go through our policy every year. If any HUD has changes, they'll upgrade our policy.
I get that.
every
My
year.
question is, these options,
Okay.
there's framework within, you can make some choices. How often do y'all go through that list to say, oh, maybe we need to make some changes for today's world?
Usually it's around every, 3 years.
Okay. Council, are there other questions
As it relates to this document?
regarding public housing before we go to section 8, which is a different program? I want to make sure we've completed our questions with this one. And could you send Ms. Trevino a link to these documents that we've been talking about? Because now I'm finding a whole bunch and I don't know which ones apply.
Can I say something? I know we are going through big changes right now with HUD. It's called HOTMA. It's a whole new policy on our income and it's a major change. We're having to overhaul all of our policies pretty much. So,
I figured, that's why I asked that question
Yeah.
about if y'all had received that memo. And if we can
Yes.
kind of get an idea,
Okay.
because
Uh-huh.
obviously these people live in a
Yep.
city that
yes.
we preside over. And so
Yes.
just so we're aware. I only have one more question as it relates to the public housing. I know in the policy, part of to be able to get approved, an applicant has to or is required to complete pre-occupancy classes or an orientation. I'm reading your policy. Is that for Section 8 or is that public housing?
It's for Section 8.
For Section 8? Oh, okay, okay. Because I see it says because the applicant no longer qualifies for public housing. So that's why I was assuming it
Oh, okay.
was related to public housing. And I was just going to ask what those classes and orientation consist of.
Yeah, we don't, not for public housing.
No.
They go through an interview, they're screened before they're housed.
Okay.
Sorry. So not to harp on the training part, but I feel like since like y'all are our like, I guess liaisons are like our bridge to the housing authority process. I just want to name, or I guess ask, so just so we're clear, there isn't a formal onboarding process for new commissioners, correct?
From us?
Yeah.
No.
No, but you do, like they said, like, links and the virtual opportunity for trainings. Or is that the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials? Is that the training through them?
Well, there's several different trainings that they can do for the commissioners that they can go to from different.
Gotcha. So the reason I asked is because I think it's clear that our commissioners are giving their time as unpaid volunteers. And based off the testimonials, like it's clear that it's coming from a place of like a very personal, right? Like that's motivating them to donate their time. But without a structured orientation or ongoing support, I worry that we're putting them in a tough position, especially when it comes to navigating HUD regulations, oversight responsibilities, and fair housing laws. And then to add on what you just stated, like the changes. So yeah, I'd really love to explore like how we can remedy that or assist moving forward in helping provide maybe more access. Like I don't know what the barrier is to have more of that, right? So it's like, I heard it's kind of overwhelming to orient yourself. Like, I'm just wanting to know if there's anything we can do to support efforts on having a more formal and structured onboarding process so that folks can kind of jump into the work instead of kind of being lost in the sauce and figuring out themselves.
Well, thank you for your question. As acting chairperson for this year, I can put my time into making a packet for new commissioners from this year forward. So that way, at least it has links and places they can go to. And I don't mind putting that my time in that. It's similar to PTO. I have to make a binder for them.
Oh, you
for-
know the vibes, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm DZ PTO president. So yeah, I'm doing the same thing. So I don't see that much difference between needing to do this binder and that binder. But I don't mind putting my time in there. I mean, this is what I initially wanted to do is help the community. And especially if it's more people becoming commissioners throughout the years to come, I don't mind doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. In a conversation I had with a council member from another municipality, something that they said kind of stuck with me, and I don't think they meant to like throw shade, but they said, failure to provide those resources to your council appointed commissioners is like a lack of like fundamental governance support. And it came from like a place of care where it's like, what are you doing to make sure that they are set up for success? Because obviously it's very personal motivation and you're doing it for free. So I hate that it's again like adding more work, but I appreciate you offering that. Okay, I feel bad.
Thank you. My question is, we give up some of our tax roll for y'all to be able to run y'all's programs for maintenance or whatever else. Do you have any idea how much revenue you're bringing in from us giving up those taxes?
For public housing or?
This would be for public housing, I believe. It's like Lantana and Mariposa.
That's not public
I'm gonna
housing.
fix that in a minute. I wanted to make sure we were done with all the properties that is on their list that they manage.
Mayor will take.
Are
care
there
of
any
that.
more questions on the housing authority and the properties that they own and manage?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have a question?
No, I'm just, I have to leave. I have to get to work, but thank you so much for the board being here. Just love you guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Can I say something about the waiting list again?
Sure.
Just to, basically, when they apply, get on the waiting list, And we ask them to call in every 6 months because we have people that need to be on, want to be on the waiting list, and some people have already gone. So that's why we have to set rules to, call in to let us know whether you're interested in housing or not. If you're not, you need to go on, then, we can take you off the waiting list and let somebody else come up for a number. That's how we have to manage our waiting list, because it can be very overwhelming, the waiting list. And
How many
I
are
didn't
on?
want to, I guess is what I'm trying to say is we're not trying to just, if you don't answer, then we're just going to ditch you off. And, we take everything into consideration. I know everybody has applied because that they need housing, and, but yet we have to do maintenance on our waiting list also, just like everything else has to be maintained. So it is, I just wanted to throw that out. So,
Do you know about how many people are on each of the waiting lists now? Is it 12, 100, 200?
for the whole public housing,
Sure, we'll start with that.
there's probably about 400. There again are 1 and 2, 3, but then 4 and 5, 3, 4, and 5, but they're not very many on the waiting
Not as
list.
many,
It's most-
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Section 8, there's,
We'll talk about Section 8
okay.
later.
Okay,
But
This is where I don't want to start convoluting
okay.
things.
That's fine.
as somebody though who asked questions about, the public housing waiting list, I
Uh-huh.
do appreciate the clarification. Because I was going through the wait list that y'all have on y'all's website.
Uh-huh.
And I was seeing, how backdated some of those requests are. And I guess, my concern obviously is the ambiguity around a reasonable time.
Sure.
And so I just wanted to make sure that y'all did have that level of grace for those extenuating circumstances, considering that many people might not have consistent access to the address to receive it or the phone number that they initially provided. But I definitely understand the purging of such and wanting to make sure that we're actually getting people in housing. And so I guess this is for another day, but any kind of scenario examples of those things on some of the grace that y'all have given regarding these extenuating circumstances would definitely bring me some comfort, just to know that these are things that y'all are practicing. So,
Absolutely.
but I appreciate the clarification.
I had a couple questions.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Is this about the housing authority?
Yes.
And the properties that they own and manage?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're all kind of convoluted. I'm trying to filter them in my head. So going back to the waiting list. So I understand the importance of maintaining a list, but I'm struggling to, I guess, see what the harm. Okay, if we don't purge the list, the only thing I'm seeing is that people move up to the top of the list, are notified that they are now at the top of the list and we have a property ready for you. Worst case scenario, they say, hey, I don't need it anymore, and you move to the next name. So I'm struggling to see why it's so important to remove people who potentially might not need the help anymore, when worst case scenario, they get to the top of the list and then at that point notify us, hey, I don't need help.
It's just easier to keep up with the waiting list. I mean, if they don't, if they don't, is what happens is if they don't respond in 6 months, okay, and we don't check that 6 months that they've responded, they come up on the waiting list. They come up number 1, okay? And we send out a letter, we call them to offer them a unit. They're gone. They don't answer. So we drop them off the waiting list. So it's if they don't keep everything updated versus, it's just keeping their address updated, and that is basically what it is, maintaining.
Okay, so I think where you may be going with this, and if I'm wrong, just tell me, is let's say it's my 6-month check-in.
Right.
And I've got a place now. but I don't know how long I'm gonna be there. If I say, I'm good, take me off the list, and then a month later, situation changes and I need housing again, I've lost my place in line, right? Is that what you're wondering, is why is it important to start
Well,
dropping people off
that
along the
too.
way?
That too, but then also, like you said, okay, so worst case scenario, we leave you on the list, you get to the top of the list, and we can't make contact with you, so you get removed from the list. So either way, they're getting removed from the list. My issue is if something happens literally at that 180-day mark, 175-day mark, and at that point they were unresponsive, they were in the hospital, they were whatever. Now they got removed from the list, but in reality, they weren't anywhere near the top of the list. But when they do make to the top of the list, they could have had an opportunity to respond at that point. So if at the end of the day, not being able to make contact with them is what ultimately removes them from the list, why don't we wait to the very last minute to remove them from the list? Like literally your house is ready. Okay, now you didn't respond. Okay, there's literally nothing else we can do. But removing you from the list 3 years before you're even at the top of the list, I don't see how that makes sense to me.
If it were me, I'd say I was still interested.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, I would say I was still interested till I get to the top of the list.
And that's all you have to do is call in and say, I'm still interested. And it's like, okay, you're still on.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Okay, so another question I had, so I know there's like reviews and I don't necessarily want to say an appeal process, but an appeal process when adverse actions taken against, I guess tenants, once they're receiving housing,
Okay.
is being removed from the list also an adverse action? Like, is there an appeal process to being removed? So if you didn't respond within the 6 months, and then, so you didn't respond to the request, hey, do you still want to be on the list? Because I didn't get that letter, but I do get the letter that says I got removed from the list. Is there a way to be like, no, don't remove me, like I want to stay on? Or once that that determination has been made that they're being removed, they're removed, there's really no way to reverse that?
You get 2 letters. And then once that second letter, then if you haven't responded, then you go off the list.
Okay. Now the big question that we've talked about before, and then after that, we'll take a break and then we'll go to section 8.
Okay.
It has to do with these housing finance corporations. They come in
Mhm.
and there's some rules with TDHCA and we make some rules too. And they come into our community and we're always happy that there's going to be low income housing.
Mhm.
But I don't want to be the one for Central Texas where everybody is coming here
Right.
especially when a property is going to be tax exempt, because those folks are going to want services like everybody else does. And we're not getting any tax money to do that. So not happy about that, but understand there's not much we can do about it. My concern is the fact that these units, that y'all don't have anything to do with the management. And the number one thing is this, I'll just call it local preference. Why is it that y'all are, oh, we can't do the local preference on those? Why not? Do
You know,
y'all own it?
we are a general partner.
Do
We would
y'all
not-
own it
Yes.
outright?
No.
Because what they're doing, it looks to me like they're coming in, using y'all, paying y'all maybe some per year, to get out of paying city property tax. But yet what's the benefit to us? We're not even getting the local housing preference. So can y'all do that? And why aren't you? I'm
And-
just gonna ask it.
And that was a question last time. And
Still a question, because I haven't gotten an answer that I'm happy with.
okay, so I don't know if TDHCA will allow that. Or if we just have to go before,
Can you find out?
I was thinking that they were gonna get with our city lawyer, attorney. We're just gonna look into that.
No, I'm still
Okay.
asking the question, why can't y'all do that? If y'all can make agreements with them,
Mhm.
like how much they're gonna pay you and other agreements.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying y'all have to go in and manage it because they got
Right,
people, I get all
right.
that.
Mhm.
It's this local preference Why are we not doing that? The first question, of course, is can we? And that's a question to ask, and if it's TDHCA, that's fine. There's all these other requirements that we choose from a list of, Mr. Gonzalez, what is it, 23 or something like that? You know, the after-school programs and the food bank and all those at the site. There's a bunch of stuff. So.
Okay.
It's still a question. I'm still waiting on an answer. If it has to come later, that's fine.
Okay.
But if you could, would you?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
Yes.
so why aren't we finding out if we can?
okay. Okay. I
Because
can
I've been
do-
asking this for months.
Okay.
Still a good question, still waiting for a response. Okay, so y'all are gonna look into that with whoever it is, TDHCA and anybody else. Because it's a rule that you have, so it's not, I'm not asking for something that's not in existence.
Right.
And the second question is, how quickly can you put that in force? Now, y'all don't manage the application list for these, correct?
That is correct.
So what are y'all really, what is your relationship with these? Other than they get to not pay property taxes?
We receive fees from them, and then after 3 years that they've been fully occupied, we start receiving profit off of their income, off of their profit over a 30-year period, or that's typically what our contract is with.
Okay, so they're paying you something, which
lease.
is great,
That
that
is
helps
correct.
y'all.
Yes.
But they're thinking about, oh, well, this is what we're doing instead of property tax, and we're still not getting any property tax. Or we don't get the other fees. Now, I'm not saying necessarily we should, but we
And they,
might talk about what they need to pay us, if that's
Okay.
possible.
right. And I know that was a question last time, because on upfront fees before even going into.
A couple have offered,
right.
and we've taken them up on their offer.
Yes.
It's still not much when you consider years of
Right.
property tax that we don't have in order to provide services for all these new people who are coming into our community.
Okay.
So that's my deal. Let me ask my council, are y'all in agreement with this? With trying to get this done, the local preference? And if it changes to San Marcos, San Marcos is good. Are y'all good with this?
Yeah.
All right.
I would like to say, being the partnership brings in income for the San Marcos Housing Authority. And we have taken some of those funds and approved by my board, and have done mods on our apartments. And we just got approved because of the income that we received to do a complete mod on Springtown Villa, which is our Section 8 new construction of 60 units. So these monies that we're receiving for our partnerships, we are remodeling our apartments.
And that's a good thing to do with those dollars,
Yes.
but we're still not getting property
Right.
tax. And what you may not know is that there are a number of housing finance corporations out there now that are going into areas that, territories that they're not the local provider.
Uh-huh.
And we got a lot of stuff that's coming off the tax rolls all over Texas. There's a bill in the Senate, House,
Wow.
I believe, to make some changes to that process. And that's a problem because I heard yesterday that there's 2 more that just went off tax rolls in San Marcos. We can't afford that.
But not partners with us.
No. Mm-mm.
Just other, yeah.
No. But
And
the
one
problem
thing
is,
about partnering with us, it stays in San Marcos instead of,
that's true, but the residents
right, I see what your point.
may
there.
be
Yeah.
coming from Houston, Dallas, El Paso, whatever. And I'd sure like to see preference given to our local people first, which is what you do,
Okay.
or at least Hays County. That's good. And I don't understand why y'all didn't say from the get-go, okay, we're going to partner with you, but let us tell you what this rule is for us, and that's what we're going to do here.
Mhm.
So I'm disappointed that that didn't happen. I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
So if we can figure out how quickly we can make that happen, that would be great.
Okay.
And I'll keep asking. I got another year and a half. About the housing authority, for the housing authority property? For the housing authority properties or section 8? One we're on right now? Go ahead. And then we're gonna take a break.
I have one more quick question.
And this what, we got some feedback regarding the wait list reopening situation.
Section 8.
Oh, this last one was for section 8. Okay, so
That's probably a section 8.
the debacle. Okay, so I'll wait for that. Okay, I guess my other question was. Okay, I feel like I should email you those questions because it's just gonna confuse everybody. I just wanted to, I guess, reiterate some of the concerns that my colleague shared about the purging of the list. And that best practices to allow reinstatement where good cause is shown, right? And that's where equity comes in. So while I understand the sentiment of everybody gets treated the same, I think that it's important that y'all ensure reasonable accommodations are available to avoid unintentional discrimination. So, not removing someone who didn't receive mail because they're homeless or have a disability. So I just wanted to name that. I think that's important. But the rest of my comments and questions, I think would probably be better if I just like email them so that I don't confuse everybody.
Mr. Gonzalez here. Then I have a question, then Mr. Gonzalez here.
I'm not sure if you're gonna ask this or maybe it's out of place, but when it comes to the surrendering of services that some of these complexes are not doing, y'all are taking the money but not making sure if those services are being rendered to our citizens? Is that,
TDHCA is responsible for ensuring that the requirements that we put on them are done.
That's correct.
okay?
And they have to do a report to,
And we talk of one particular one, I think it was Lantana, that we were find out if they were receiving their, what they said they were gonna give their residents.
What do you mean?
Oh, I think there was one that was gonna give them transportation to people that live in those apartments. And, to my understanding, they haven't provided that service to their residents.
TDHCA is supposed to be enforcing that. And what I heard from one person familiar said that I think it's every 3 years, there's a review or an audit. They said, I'd rather go through an IRS audit than this one. So it must be pretty strenuous.
Mayor, I have some information, if you don't
Please,
mind. Amanda
enlighten
Hernandez,
us.
Director of Planning and Development Services. So I did a general open records request from TDHCA to see what their reports looked like.
Mhm.
And then specifically reached out and asked for some information on Lantana. And it's not super clear in their reports exactly what service wasn't being provided, but Lantana did get a mark that they weren't providing a service. But then a follow-up letter from TDHCA said that the service was being provided. So it looks like the one specifically that you have a concern about, Lantana, corrected whatever issue they were having.
Okay. I'm just curious as to how much revenue, they said they wrote you some checks here recently from those different apartment complex. We talking about thousands of dollars or,
Can you just give us a list, if you'll email it to Ms. Reyes, I guess, what they have provided
in the very
initially,
beginning.
and what they have paid since, everything they paid you and when.
Okay.
we just want to hold them accountable,
Oh, absolutely.
you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Developers are out for themselves, not
Yes.
all of them. but- yeah. That's all I have. Thank you.
So not talking about these partnerships specifically, but mayor's questions and conversation about that reminded me of the question I was gonna ask earlier. Going back to the prioritization of Hayes County residents. Is there a possibility of having like a two-tiered priority where it's like San Marcos is prioritized, then Hayes County, then everyone else? So like there's still preference for Hayes County residents, but our city residents are prioritized above them. Or
So you're
is-
saying you want a preference for San Marcos and then Hayes County and then other?
Correct.
Um,
Of course we do.
uh, I don't know. I can't answer that,
Okay.
but I can find that out. Preference for San
The
Marcos.
thing we talked about earlier when you said maybe there's a possibility that you could do preference for San Marcos.
Right.
We want to hear back on that too.
Okay, right. And, other.
Okay, my question on the waiting list, if it's my turn and I'm up and you contact me and no response, how long do you wait? 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, 14 days before you go to the next person in line?
You have 7 days turnaround. Okay, so you come up on the waiting list, right? We send you a letter, saying, are
Do
you
you
still in?
call?
I'm sorry?
Do you call?
Yeah, if the letter comes back, we call. We'll call. We send out 2 letters. We give them.
Seems like you're burning a lot of time. If you just called them and they said, I'm ready to move in tomorrow, you could save a whole bunch of time.
Well, I mean, the letter, you have documentation that you sent it out
I'm not saying don't send the letter.
and call.
I'm just saying
Right,
that takes time.
Right.
And I get that you have to send it. I'm not saying not to send it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, could you just,
Call.
can you call them?
Yes, they do call too. Yes.
Okay,
will
so how
call.
long is it before, if there's no response, does my spot go to somebody else?
You have. Sorry, I don't work with this every day, so. They send out a letter. It's usually, if they
Can you
haven't
get
heard,
closer to the microphone, please?
if they haven't heard back from you, in 10 days, they will send another letter out. If they haven't heard back from you, then you're dropped from the waiting list and go to the
Business
next
or
one.
business days or?
Business days, business, yes,
10 days?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions?
That includes an email as well, or?
No, no, we're not.
Everybody has emails.
And we do work back and forth or emails, but we still send the letters. That doesn't,
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yeah, if it's, I don't know again how HUD's
Yeah.
policy works, but
Yeah.
if it's possible, the policy that you sent us that we're looking at to actually include that a call goes on top of that, on top of the actual letter, that would be preferable. Because if I was understanding what you said earlier correctly, the call isn't necessarily coming unless y'all get a return to sender
right.
letter. And so maybe just making those happen simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I looked on y'all's website, as far as the public housing waiting list is concerned. Is it normal for everybody to be deemed ineligible? Like there's a whole category that says eligibility, yes or no? And I'm not seeing anybody with a Y, a yes. So am I misunderstanding the graph? Is everybody just automatically considered ineligible?
No.
On their website, there's a waiting list, and they have its, differentiated by public housing, Section 8, so on and so forth. And they're all on the San Marcos Public Housing Authority website. It just,
Because I'm not seeing it. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying I can't find it.
yeah, one sec. I think it's under how to get started. Let me see. Because maybe these are just old, but it had something. Let me see.
I do say that you're not taking applications for 1 and 2 bedroom units right now.
Well, now I lost where I found it. Oh, okay. It's on the first page and you scroll down and it has housing, view waitlist, resident services. It's the view waitlist.
Homepage,
Yes, ma'am.
view waitlist.
Mhm. And if you click on the public housing category, it goes by bedroom size. And And I'm looking, a lot of the people who apply are outside of the county anyway.
And you can apply. We
Mm.
cannot deny anybody to apply.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For our commissioners who were residents or still are, were any of y'all outside of the county when you applied?
Yeah, I was in McLennan County. Yeah, I was out of the area when I applied. I was actually in public affordable housing in Waco, Texas. So I wasn't technically a transfer, but I was in a similar program.
Okay, and and if you're comfortable sharing, how would you feel about, us making a local preference, being somebody who applied outside?
Um, for me, actually, when I applied for the Chapultepec program back in, I think it was 2010, there was no residency restriction on it. It was after I left the program that I think you had to be a San Marcos resident for 6 months before you could apply for that program. And for me, that would have been pretty detrimental. There's no way I came here for Texas State, and there's no way I could have rented a per room situation. I had a toddler, I had a partner. It was really hard to figure out housing even back then. So it took a lot of persistence to even find the Chapultepec program. I definitely understand that depending on demand and just kind of the dynamics at play, that potentially could be something that could be helpful. But for me, 10 years ago, it worked in my favor. So
I appreciate that. I mean, people come here for various reasons. And so I know sometimes we're always intending to do right by people, but I wanted to ask you, because those are some unintended consequences that we may face when we put local preferences on.
sure.
And so I appreciate you taking the time to share that. Were y'all able to pull up the document that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So is it normal for everybody to have that eligibility listed as no?
So, my colleague,
Wait.
and I think the issue with this is the way it's printed, because there's essentially 2 rows of columns and then like 2 rows of answers. So the question that everyone has a no for is the eligibility, yes, no date, which I'm assuming this is just a filter of all y'all's applicants. So since these people are still on the waiting list, they haven't gotten a yes, no date and time yet, which is why there's an N on there.
I'm not quite sure. We'll have to check into that and get back with y'all.
So I don't think it's saying that they're not eligible. I think it's just because there hasn't been a date where they were ruled eligible or not eligible because they
Right.
haven't made it to the top of the list yet. That's the way I'm
I
reading
mean,
it.
we're making assumptions. We can just wait for them to.
Well, yeah, that's
answer.
why I'm asking them. Yeah, if y'all don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
I have a question.
So I'm just gonna read a couple things and then my question is at the end. So just a quick side-by-side comparison with some best practices that I found on the HUD's website and a lot of those resources versus the Housing Authority policy. So notification method, best practice, written notice via mail with additional contact methods, email, phone, text, encourage. This policy, written notice via mail to the last known address on file. The response window, HUD best practice, a reasonable deadline must be provided, often 10 to 30 days for applicants to respond. Our policy, applicants are given 10 business days to respond to the mailed notice. Acceptable reasons for removal, HUD best practice, clear specific reasons must be defined in the administrative plan. For example, failure to respond, applicant request, eligibility changes. From what I could tell, the San Marcos Housing Authority policy is removal can occur due to failure to respond, inability to contact, applicant request, or ineligibility. Reasonable accommodations. HUD best practice must offer reasonable accommodations for disability or hardship. Failure to respond due to disability cannot be reason for removal. SMH policy, reasonable accommodations are mentioned, but no specific procedure for ensuring accommodations before removal appears to be outlined. It could be one of those missing pages. Language access, HUD best practice, vital notices should be translated or interpreted for limited English proficient applicants. From what I read, the SMH policy, no reference to language access or LEP procedures related to waitlist purging in the administrative plan section. Again, that could just be on another part of the PDF. Return mail procedure, Best practice, return mail should trigger follow-up attempts using alternative methods before removal. Again, my interpretation of what was given to us, return mail may result in removal, no indication of follow-up by phone, email, or other methods, but you did share some of that. It's just, I didn't know what, just reading off the documents. The reinstatement policy, HUD best practice, reinstatement must be allowed if good cause is shown. For example, medical emergencies, mail issues, language barriers. What I read in y'all's policy, reinstatement may be granted upon request if applicant can demonstrate valid reason for not responding, but doesn't specify the process. Appeals to the process, HUD best practice, applicants must inform of a formal appeal or review process before removal becomes final. They must be informed. From what I read in the documents provided, no formal appeals process is outlined in the waitlist removal section. Reinstatement appears to be discretionary. Documentation and oversight, a best practice. PHAs should document all contact attempts and reasons for removal. Oversight by supervisory staff is recommended. From the documents provided, I didn't see details about staff documentation of contact attempts beyond sending the notice, but you did expand on some of that, so I appreciate that. And then frequency of the waitlist purge, HUD best practice is to purge inactive applications annually or biannually with clear communication. I did not see a clear policy stated on the frequency of the purges, but I could have just overlooked that. All of that to say, how often do y'all revisit the waitlist policy, and to what extent do the commissioners provide their feedback, since most of, I mean, based on your testimonies, you have experience navigating these type of programs. Like, how does that work so that we lean on, I think one of y'all said, you're not a subject matter expert. I just want to like gently push back on that, because your subject matter expertise is your lived experience. And I feel like if we tap into that, then you just naturally would lean into best practices. So my question was, best practice versus what's I'm reading, there's like a disconnect. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, when does y'all's feedback get considered when you review the policies of the waitlist specifically?
Well, typically when a policy's done, the change in the policy, Nelrod, our company who does our policies, does it as a draft. I then present it to my board. We go through the policy, and if no changes, my board approves. So there might be things in the policy that we need changing, and we would kind of regroup and revisit the policy to see what changes we need to do.
Yeah, and I think that's what Mr. Gonzalez was mentioning earlier when he was corresponding with the police,
Right.
his experience about what policies are are HUD picking versus like the person above HUD or the below, the person that we correspond with more. And I think that's what he was saying earlier. I think we can definitely discuss this in our next meeting and see where we go with HUD.
On the current list, there's 178. Of those, Hayes is 80, Caldwell County is 19, and Travis is 27.
Public housing?
Yeah, so Hayes is about half. Anything else? It is now 7:20. So let's take a 10-minute break, and we will reconvene at 7:30. Thank you.
That's.
Line. And next, we're going to cover section 8. If you have questions about the topic that we did just talk about, write them down. You've got notepads. We will come back to that at the end of the section 8. we're going to keep our conversations separated because it's a whole lot easier and nobody goes home with a misunderstanding. So, for section 8, Ms. Wagner, if you would, give us the explanation of what section 8 is and then how people apply. I think maybe there's a waiting list involved and, how all that works out, if you would, please, ma'am.
Okay, section 8, housing
Get
choice.
closer to your microphone. Put
Section-
it just right, now, don't lean over, just put it right in front of you. Closer.
Closer, closer, closer. I thought I had a loud mouth.
Thank you. No, it's not picking you up, trust me.
Section 8, housing choice voucher. Basically, it has a waiting list. I just lost my train of thought here. It's a little bit different than public housing because we have landlords instead of owning the property. So section 8, in order to get on section 8, you have to apply and get on the waiting list. When you become number 1, you go in for screening. You do it's like an interview. It's a whole group of them that can go in. They do an interview explaining what the process is on finding apartments, what your standards are on how much you can spend on an apartment versus what housing will pay. And of course, the applicant has to be screened also. You're checked for criminal background. And if everything checks out, you move forward, you're given a voucher. You go and you search for a house, trailer house.
These are privately owned.
Privately owned, yes,
property.
that is correct. Yes. So once you find a place to live, and of course, mind you, these privately owned places, landlords, they also do a criminal background check. And if you're approved with them also, then you and found a place there, then you can move in. So our waiting list was, let's go back to the waiting list with section 8. Everybody likes to be on section 8. They like to go find their place to live. So section 8 always has a long waiting list. Not this past time, but the time before, 8 years ago, we opened up the waiting list and I believe we had 500 people get on the waiting list. It took 8 years to go through it, which there again, we have to do maintenance on the waiting list to see if you're still interested or if you've moved on.
Ms. Wagner, and how many slots do you have?
Vouchers?
Uh-huh.
Vouchers, we have 267 vouchers. That includes 16 VASH vouchers. That's part of the 267. Veterans, which we just received a couple of years ago. So and this last time we opened up the waiting list, we allowed, I think it was, we gave out 200 and something, 225 applicants. And is what they do is they pick up the application, fill it out, and then we have a day where you turn in the application to get on the waiting list. Okay, so the night before, there's a whole line, people camp out and they're wanting to turn in their application. So basically it's your first one in first and your number, that's your number. And you turn in the application, we enter you into the waiting list. Once we receive all the applications and the end of the day, we have timelines on this. Then we enter them into the waiting list and then we close the waiting list and won't allow any more on until the waiting list goes down. Yes.
Oh, okay, you're,
Let me know if you have a question, because I've already got one.
And if you want to ask a question, get the microphone in front of you.
gotcha.
Okay,
These-
so are all of these weighted the same? I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a one bedroom or a three bedroom, whatever, it's sequenced.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Yes. It doesn't
And-
go by bedroom size.
Okay, at what point does the income verification come into play? Basically, am I qualified for all those other
Right.
things?
That's when the briefing is done. When your name comes up for a voucher, that's when they bring you in and they'll do a briefing and you go through all the process
Okay.
of whether you are able, if you qualify.
So it's when I'm a step away from being able to use the voucher.
Right, that is correct.
Okay,
That
thank
is
you.
correct.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Thank you. My question is criminal background.
Yes.
How far do you go back? And let's say they already done the time and, a criminal background, how far do you go back? 5 years?
HUD, we go back 5 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Just,
And I would like to mention that just because we approved, it doesn't mean, because then they go out to the landlords and they're going to do the same thing. They go back 20 years. So that has been an issue with us because we've approved them and then they get to the landlords, they'll go back 20 years.
wow.
Yes.
And they can live there as long as they're paying their rent?
Yes.
There's
yeah,
no time
absolutely,
limit
yes.
at all? Yeah, I didn't know that. I lost my train of thought, guys. It happens. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lorenzo Gonzalez?
Do landlords have to apply to be able to accept Section 8 vouchers, or?
Do they have to?
Yeah, so do the landlords have to apply to be able to take those tenants, or can the tenant take their voucher to any?
Typically, what a landlord does is they will say, we will take Section 8. And of course, then we have to give them our Section 8 rules and regulations that they have to go by. Because if the tenant is going to move there, we have to go out and do an inspection on the units or house or trailer or whatever to make sure it meets HUD standards for, it's called HQS inspection.
But though, so that inspection is just standard across the nation. It's a HUD inspection.
Right,
Not.
right.
So we couldn't take, like, going back to your situation about the background checks where landlords go back 20 years. So even though we approved them, the landlord might not.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't put a requirement that for a landlord to take Section 8 vouchers, they can only go back 5 years.
No, that's, yeah, that's a private sector that, yeah.
But there is requirements that they gotta meet before y'all even approve the housing for them.
Right, that is correct. There's a formula that they do with the income versus what they can, even a landlord, like, for a one bedroom, it's like, okay, you cannot, if this landlord is asking $500, let me see how I explain that, but you can only qualify by your income a certain amount, paying rent.
And let's just say that y'all paid y'all's half and the tenant did not pay their half.
Right.
What happens then?
They get evicted.
Okay, just like
Yeah.
anybody else.
Right, that is correct. Yes.
But in that
Sure.
situation, does the tenant lose their voucher or can they take their voucher to another landlord that would be willing to?
Uh,
'Cause I know once you get evicted, it's hard to
right,
go
right.
anywhere else, but if they did find another property willing to rent to them, is being evicted cause for losing their voucher?
If they're evicted, yes, they could lose their voucher. If they, yes, they could lose their voucher.
One
For
last
non-payment
question
of rent.
on this. What percentage of renters or landlords do we have out there that have places for those people to come and rent from? Do you have any idea? I mean, do we have more than enough?
More than 267?
Right.
I mean, I'm just trying to see.
Gosh, yeah, there's a lot out
Well, okay,
there.
there's plenty
Yes,
out.
there's,
there, okay.
there's quite a few.
That's another shortage of.
But the thing is, they
landlords.
have to take Section 8.
Right, right. That's all. Thank you.
How is that 267 number like allocated? Like, I'm assuming it's HUD has a formula, but what, do you know what?
That is what HUD gave us, and I do want to state, as long as I know, I've been with the Housing Authority for almost 30 years, and we always had 228 vouchers. And HUD looks at it, if you feel, if you use those vouchers, then, and you meet all the qualifications for them, then they will give you more vouchers. We got, about 4 years ago, we got 16 more. I mean, we built it up to 267. So, and we have requested, like the veterans, the BASH vouchers, they gave us 16. But we had to prove to them that we could fill those vouchers. And we don't have a problem filling the vouchers. But I do want to state that we have 267 vouchers with the money that we receive from HUD and versus what we pay against the tenants for their rent, we cannot use up all those 267 vouchers. Because the money's, we don't get enough money. And we can't, I mean, that's Section 8 money. There is no commingling monies with Section 8. But
So,
we get a subsidy from HUD and we pay a portion of the rent. And basically it's your income. The less income, the more we're gonna pay.
so
more
does HUD
rent.
give us both a bag of money and a allotment of vouchers, but like, I guess I'm confused why we couldn't use the whole 267, because we're using the money
Because the rents are
to
too high.
finance.
We're paying too much rent.
Say it on the record. Sure is.
Let's back up and explain what it means to have a Section 8 housing voucher. And how much is it worth? Are they all worth the same? Is it a percent of the rent? Let's talk about that because I don't know the answers to those things.
Basically, it's a formula that we use, HUD uses. It's 30% of your gross income.
30% of your gross income for what?
Yeah, that we
Allow for housing?
allow for housing versus how much the rent is, how much the rent is. You have your rent and okay, Nancy, can it's hard to explain here.
So essentially, a voucher recipient is expected to contribute 30% of the gross income, and then we make up the difference?
Right,
Or-
that is correct.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of.
Regardless of what the rent is?
That's where it kind of comes in play. It's your rent. So let me state this. So if we have somebody that comes into housing that has no income, okay? and they, or that loses their job. So they're on zero income. Who pays their rent? We do. We pay 100% of their rent. So that's what's happening is you get this, the lower income, which that's the benefit of being in Section 8 is the help from housing. But the rents and the money that we get with HUD, we can't use up all those 267 vouchers because we'll run out of money. We don't get enough.
What's the most that it will pay for any one month, any one landlord?
$1,000, if they're on zero rent, $1,500.
And how long can someone do that where they're not paying anything? Is there a limit to that period of time?
Typically, no, there's not a limit. But we have to go in and do a questionnaire on zero rent. I mean, how do you live on no money?
Well, I mean,
So
somebody
it's
get
a-
laid off and you may
Right.
be
Sure,
laid off for
sure,
a while. and-
Right, yeah, no, there's not a limit.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Is there an upper cap on what a landlord can charge in rent to accept Section 8 housing?
Not in Texas.
No. mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
But
No, the state.
But
the
there
state
again,
Supreme-
when the tenant is screened, I mean, they can't go over the standard depending on their income,
The standard what?
so standard rents. The fair, it's fair market rates, yeah.
What's the fair market rate right now?
Yeah. Yeah. It's up on the web. It's up on the web. I don't have it with me.
It's on your
yeah,
website,
Yeah.
under Section 8?
You can just look up fair market rates. We're in the Austin Round Rock area.
So
Yeah, who determines that?
HUD. Housing.
Other questions?
yes, ma'am.
1650 per month for a one bedroom.
Ms. Rodriguez?
It's about as much as I make as a council person. Shoot, what was I gonna ask? Oh, yes. So I know the last time we spoke, when we opened up the wait list, was that wait list for both Section 8 and public housing
No.
or just Section 8?
Section.
So I know we have 267. You said we filled about 220 of those, 225, something like that.
Mhm.
So if we did fill all 267, what you're saying is that we wouldn't have even been able to afford that anyway.
All of our 260, no.
Mhm. And so,
So wait, back up. So the waiting list,
mhm,
they're on the waiting list. So we didn't give them a voucher. They're
Okay,
they're on the
okay.
waiting list.
so that 220, where was that figure from then?
That-
I'm sorry,
that-
I missed that.
That was, sorry, that was years ago. We started out with 228 vouchers.
Okay.
Vouchers is once you've gone through the waiting list and you're ready to go, you've been approved for housing, we give you a voucher to go search for an apartment
Mhm.
or house.
So
So
currently, we have no vouchers is,
no,
is
no.
where we're at now. No,
We can't give out any vouchers
okay.
because they're already, they're used up.
Cause I'm just like, I'm trying to understand, and excuse my ignorance, I'm
That's
just
okay.
trying to understand, because a lot of this sounds like the feds.
Uh-huh.
If you're saying that the feds see us fulfilling all 267, if we were,
Uh-huh.
as a clear desire that we need vouchers and potentially may make us eligible for receiving more, does that also mean additional money on top of that?
Yes.
That's also appropriated to y'all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that money that's appropriated to y'all, is that annually that y'all get that? Or the money to cover it? Like if somebody, you mentioned, you gave an example earlier, if I have a voucher and I still can't afford to cover any of it, y'all foot that bill?
No, well, the money is given to us every month, monthly. It's called our
Month,
HAP
okay.
payment, HAP subsidy payment. We do a report every month on how many vouchers we have filled,
Mhm.
and HUD turns around and gives us that money.
Okay. And how much fluctuation have you seen in them giving money, or is it relatively stayed the same in your time? Does it change with inflation? Does it change? Have you noticed any of that?
Yes, it's well, we've gotten more funding. And there again, that's because with your fair market rates, that when that goes up, everything goes up. So it has to kind of work
Okay.
together.
Mayor, I wonder though, just so everybody's aware, when it comes to housing, one of the things that this council has talked about is a lot of the income is related to what Austin has, right? When we talk about housing and what it's going to cost. And so the council, we have sort of initiated discussions to try to, come up with a resolution to make sure that when we talk about comparing median income, it's relevant to our people and not Austin. But what you're saying is if we did change that and made it more relevant to our area, housing authority is still regardless going to go off of whatever market rate HUD is
That is
determining.
correct. It's the Austin area, Austin Round Rock. That is what the fair market rate is for us that we go off of.
Interesting.
And you go down New Braunfels, they're south. So that'll be, the fair market will be different.
And are these like, are y'all able to have any conversations to explain to them? Or are y'all given that opportunity to explain to them how that median income is not reflective of the people that we're dealing with? Is that option
Yes.
given?
Yeah.
And have y'all had those conversations before?
Well, I feel like I had, because they've retired now, good communication with we have a field office in San Antonio
Mhm.
who we work with, and I meet with them quarterly. And we go over these figures,
Mhm.
and we have discussed, but I mean.
But
it
have they
comes from
changed anything?
Washington, I'm sorry.
Have they changed anything? So even though we make the point that this is really not San Marcos, they say that's the way it is?
Yeah.
I
Well,
think Ms. Hernandez may have some enlightenment for us, and we're always appreciative of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject, Amanda Hernandez, Director of Planning and Development Services, that it's typical for monies that we receive from HUD as well, and the TDHCA calculations that they use when people apply for the low-income housing tax credit projects. We're part of the Austin Metropolitan Statistical Area, and unless and until that changes, I don't see that anything will change as far as what they consider, they being HUD, consider our median income.
That's one of our legislative priorities, is to try to get real.
Yes, and I
It's
think
for
we
them
have,
to
we
get
have the
real.
population to be a metropolitan statistical area on our own. But then we're competing for monies with the other MSAs in Texas and in the nation. So there are challenges that come with that as well.
But maybe we won't be our own, but maybe we could be with surrounding counties that's more equitable.
Maybe if New Braunfels will get on board with us, but yeah,
Caldwell,
it is something we can consider looking at with the legislature.
it's on our list.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Just one more to go back to the one I was mentioning earlier about, let's see, the classes and orientation required for Section 8 that the applicant is required to do.
Yeah.
So what are some of those classes that I see it says pre-occupancy classes or orientation? Is that, what does that consist of?
It's called is what we call it, is their briefing. If we've gone through and you're approved, and before we give you a voucher, you have to go through the briefing, and they go through and explain the lease and the rules and regulations.
Oh, okay. So it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
onboarding,
yes,
not necessarily like
correct.
drug or any of those type of classes.
Right. No.
Okay, okay.
One question there. There's,
Hold on.
Yeah, because I'm still struggling to understand the whole why we're not using our own, all our allotment of vouchers. So, and I know this is an oversimplification and not realistic, but we have 267 vouchers. If we had all 267 be in one-bedroom apartments, qualify for one-bedroom apartments, and all have zero income, which means we're paying 100% of the bill. So 267 applicants where I forgot what you called it, but the average, whatever, in San Marcos is $1,650. So 267 times 1650, $440,550. I'm assuming HUD's not giving us $440,550 in that situation. So what dollar amount does HUD give us? Like, because in the absolute, I guess, worst case scenario where we're paying 100% of every applicant, I'm assuming HUD's not going to reimburse us 100% of every applicant. So does HUD have a formula that they
Yes.
calculate? And
Yes.
what is that? I mean, I'm pretty sure it's complex, but
Yeah.
in layman's terms, what is that formula?
Yeah. It is very complex. If we could send it to you,
Yeah, that's fine.
can we do that? Okay.
Yeah, if you really could, that would be great. We're going to be taking a trip to DC. And, obviously we want to be the best advocates that we can for things in this city, and that includes public housing. And so anything that you believe is a shortfall that, the government can
Right.
sit there and actually better supplement and provide subsidies, we need to know so we can be the best advocates. So kind of think of anything that you can think of as it relates to barriers or impediments that the federal government has placed on y'all. So we then can be best advocates for that.
Yep, get us a list.
I do know HUD pushes for more vouchers than public housing. They're not giving out any more public housing. I mean, they haven't for a long time. We can't build any more public housing. We can have more Section 8 vouchers, but not public housing.
It's, two questions I got for you.
So, Mr. Gonzalez, it's now your turn.
Thank you. Two questions I have. One is on the deposit for Section 8.
Uh-huh,
We know they're already struggling as is.
uh-huh.
What kind of assistance do y'all give them for that? None?
We did not, no.
Wow.
And we don't set the security deposit.
Okay, I'm just,
It would be the landlord that does that, and we don't provide assistance for
it's
that.
up to the
Right.
tenant to come up with those.
Right.
And is this, what we're talking about, just for San Marcos, or is it for all Hayes County as well? Section 8.
Section 8 is Hayes County.
Can that be changed?
I don't know. I mean, that would be, yeah.
So
This one is less concerned to me because these landlords presumably are paying their property taxes, so less concerned.
So does the Kyle Housing Authority not have any Section 8 vouchers that they distribute? Like, are we the authority as far as Section 8 goes for the entire county?
Kyle Housing Authority, I believe, had 12 vouchers 15 years ago. And they couldn't make it off of that. So the San Marcos Housing Authority assumed those vouchers. So HUD approved that we could take over those vouchers. I'm not quite sure if that was exact, was it 16 or 12? But yeah,
Is there a limit now? For Hayes County? Then it was 8.
well, Kyle Housing Authority had vouchers.
Right.
Okay, and they were just strictly going to public housing. So they only had 12 vouchers, so, or 16, I'm not quite sure which one. We took over those vouchers,
So they don't have any anymore.
so they have none. They only have public housing.
But since we do the county, they could actually come to you And if they qualify and finally when their name comes
Yes,
up on the
yes,
wait list, they
yes.
could still get,
Hayes County, yes.
okay.
Yes.
I had an answer for Saul Gonzalez's question. I recently went to the utilities, new location, closer to the Barrio Pascal area where I live. And they gave me a paper flyer for an organization that helps with down payments to rented for rent and also for security deposits for the utilities. So I guess what we can do is reach out to the utility, or I can go by there again and see if they can give me a flyer so we can have that there at the housing authority
Yeah.
office. So that way, if they're needing that assistance to cover the deposit, that organization could be a resource for them.
We do have a list of people who help.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
We do provide a list of different places that help out with security deposits of different people, but we don't.
There's something out there.
Yes, that is correct.
I have a question. I'm like trying to wrap my head around the whole, not using the vouchers and all of that stuff. Some of the, I guess, based off feedback from folks in this, like the Austin MSA, they indicated that there's like a way to get the payment standard raised to a certain extent without HUD permission. And so I guess have we set the payment standard at the upper end of the allowed range?
We do a payment standard every year.
So it's
Yeah.
at the upper end of the 110%?
No, it's not 110.
But where, I guess, San Marcos, I mean, the housing authorities can
Go up.
go up to 110 without HUD's approval? Or like, it's like without, or how does that work?
You would have to have HUD approval.
So then 90 to 110% cannot like be adopted without HUD permission, is your
Right.
understanding?
That
Okay.
is correct.
Um,
Or my board approve it.
right, so
Yes,
that's,
Board approved. Yeah.
so, but if your board approved raising it, like, is there benefits to having that payment standard raised?
We possibly won't get more subsidy. So we've never we're at 95% right now. I think that's our.
Okay. So. Okay, because when I brought up, because I remember you had mentioned like the whole, like, we can't, like, basically what you said, like, we can't use them all, because then it's like, you know,
Right.
the money part that we get and all that. The question that I was asked was like, have y'all explored raising that payment standard? And basically that other housing authorities in our areas have done that. And the way that they framed it made it sound like it was like beneficial for like long-term, I guess, petitioning of the federal government to demonstrate like need.
Mhm.
But again, like, I don't understand that. Like, I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Because y'all haven't raised it.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look into it and see if it was actually beneficial for us.
Yeah, so Austin Housing Authority, Round Rock, Georgetown, have gone up to 110 or even 120. And I think it's 120 that requires HUD approval.
Right.
But yeah, I think that would be interesting to explore. And then like also like local rent studies to justify higher standards. I guess I'm trying to find like an infographic that helps me understand all that, because it's like real easy for other entities to give me advice like, you just have to do this and that's going to help you long term. But it's like contextual, obviously, like our community is different. But I'm just like trying to understand like how we end up in this deal pickle to where we're like, like, there's a need, right? And it's like, they're just like trapping us into this perpetual cycle of not getting the resources our neighbors need. Like, it's bizarre. Okay, well, now I'm more confused.
All I can say is federal rules and regulations. I mean, it's tough. Anyone else on Section 8?
I had a question about, I guess, transferability of Section 8 housing or Section 8 vouchers. So if someone lives in another area and is currently receiving a voucher and moves to San Marcos, like, how does that work? Does that take away from our 267 allotment, or does the city they come from lose a voucher and we now inherit it?
It's a good question. So it's called portability.
Okay.
So if we have a Section 8 that we gave them a voucher, okay, it's our voucher, we get subsidy, they can pour it out to Houston, okay? But yet we have to pay, it comes from our subsidy.
Okay.
Now, we can have people from Austin come in and they poured into San Marcos. That's called a port in.
Mhm.
We administer the voucher and yet they have to pay us for the rent.
So how many of those do we have? out and in.
Approximately right now, we have, I think it was 35
Out or in?
ins.
So we're getting the benefit.
We get paid some, we
Okay.
get admin money.
So we've got 35 more than the 267, kind of, sort of. Yes,
Those,
no?
they don't, they're separate. They don't,
I know, but that's 35 people being served in our community over and above the 267, correct? Assume it's 267.
okay. That doesn't count against the 267.
That's what I'm saying. We've got 35 more people served over and
Okay.
above the number of vouchers that we have, correct?
Correct.
That poured in.
Okay.
How many poured out?
We have 10 that poured out.
How long does that last?
Oh, they can live over there. They can go,
As long as they keep qualifying?
they can pour it out to, from Houston and to another town. I mean, they can do
Can they go
that.
out of state since this is federal?
Yes.
Y'all got to keep up with that?
Yes,
For joy, for joy.
yes.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So how does that work with the, I forgot the terms right now, like the calculations, because, okay, so like
Oh,
we said
boy.
that we're in Austin's market or whatever, so we're paying, they're expected to pay 30% and we're paying, I guess, 95% of, if they move to Podunk, whatever, Texas, where their rent is $650,
Mhm.
but our average rent is $1,650, are they now getting the entirety of their rent covered because their rent is so cheap? Like, are they taking our big check into a small town
No.
and getting a bigger percentage of their rent covered? Or,
mean-
or in the opposite situation, if someone
Right.
ports from somewhere that has a higher average rent and then comes here where rents are cheaper, are they getting either a benefit or a loss
Yeah.
based on porting a voucher?
Well, and what can happen is if, say, for instance, an individual wants to port out and the rent is high.
Mhm.
And a housing authority can say, we can't afford your rent. And, it's a small town versus paying a big city
Right.
rent. And it's like, we can't afford it. So either you can't pour it out or you go there and they can absorb you. If they absorb that voucher, it frees up a voucher us from, so the 267, say they were all filled and one of them was a poured out, it releases one. So
Now, the rent goes to the landlord, correct? It does not go to the,
correct, that is
yeah, it
correct.
goes straight to the landlord.
Well, I guess I was, if one of our 267 decides to port out to Manhattan where they're paying,
Uh-huh.
$10,000 a month for a closet. We're not expected to pay 70% of that rent.
Whatever the formula is,
Okay,
I mean,
then
yes.
we are.
I mean, if
But
it-
in
There's
that
gotta be a
situation, we
max.
have the ability to say we can't afford that, and
Yeah. That's where the housing authority comes in and says, you know, we can't pay that rent. We can't afford it. So you either give up your voucher, or they can take that voucher, the other housing authority can absorb it, in which still they can keep a voucher, but it's from the other housing authority.
So it's their money, not ours,
That is correct, if they absorb it.
if they accept.
Yes.
so in that situation, if we had that situation where another housing authority says that they can't afford their tenant, they poured it into us, what? So essentially, their old housing authority is dropping them, for lack of a better word.
Mhm.
And then we have to make the decision whether or not to absorb it. But we have a list, we have a waiting list.
Right,
So
that
do
is
they get
correct.
at the end of the waiting list, or do they now cut in line because we decided to absorb their? rent?
Port-ins there's not a waiting list for port-ins.
Well, I'm talking about if we're absorbing the voucher, not just they're porting in and their old housing authority is paying for it, but if we're gonna absorb it.
That means that they already, if the individual is porting in,
Mhm.
okay, they found a property. And we have a voucher that we can give, then we can absorb. If we have it, in order to absorb, we have to have a voucher. San Marcos Housing Authority, we have to take it from our
Okay,
vouchers.
but in theory, we wouldn't have a voucher to absorb because we have a waiting list. If we had a voucher to
No,
absorb someone,
but-
then
But
we.
they don't get on the waiting list.
Well, no, but my whole thing, if we just had an empty voucher, why are we not giving it to the next person on the list? Like, why is it available to absorb someone?
Because it's a portability. That's I guess, advantages of a portability. Yeah.
Interesting.
Back to the recent waiting list. Was it 200 or 250? Remind me, the 250? When y'all opened it up?
242 is what we ended up getting in.
Okay, gave out 250
Yeah, we got
applications.
about
got
250 and not all of them were turned in.
Got it.
Right.
Okay, and are we finally to that new group yet?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Lordy.
Yes, yes. And we
What a
have
day.
housed, yes.
So, any ideas on when you'll be opening it up again? And will you do the same thing where you're taking just 200 something and not 500 something?
Well, right. But remember, as we discussed last time, and I put it on answered it on the questionnaire, that we are going to do remember we did the intake where they had to wait in line to turn in the application? And this next time, we're going to do the lotto. Same process, but when they turn the application in, they turn them in, and you don't have to be the first one to be number one. Everybody turns it in. Say we give out 250 applications, okay? You have a week to turn in those 250 applications, but we've got a deadline. On this date, we're closing, right? All applications are in. Whether you were the first one or not, we enter everybody into the system, and it's a lotto.
Just a random number.
That is correct.
Like
Our
the draw.
software will do Hayes County, and you had the question, I believe, can you do Hayes County preference? And yes, it is. In the lotto that you can do, it picks only Hayes County.
Of the 500, what % of those actually remained on the list and to the point of getting a voucher? Since it was 8 years, I'm
Right.
guessing
Yeah.
not all of them.
There were a lot that we did not house.
Right.
I can probably give you,
I'm just thinking over 8
yeah.
years, how many, 120 or?
that we actually housed.
Mhm.
if you'll give me tomorrow,
Okay.
I can email, but I mean, I would say at least 120, yeah. But mind you, no, I would say at least 200.
200,
that
oh,
we
no, that's
housed.
good.
Yes, yes,
Because,
out of 500, yeah.
I mean, at some point in time, people may or may not be eligible. They're not
Right.
still in the
And then
area.
that-
They've found
right.
other resources.
And you know, that's why HUD says, I mean, because we saw the 500 on the waiting list and we had to go through and do maintenance on the waiting list
Right.
quite a few times. And it's very time consuming. But they said, try to give out how many applications that you feel like you would fill in 18 months
Okay.
versus 5 years, which
Okay.
it makes sense. If we hurry up, I mean, we
Yeah.
get these filled, then we'll open it. We'll get down to probably 30 and then we'll put it out there again.
Right. Any other questions? Ms. Rodriguez?
So I know other cities do the lottery.
Mhm.
I was looking at, I know
Yes.
Austin does it.
Yes.
I think Dallas.
Yes.
You know, to ensure that it's the most equitable process, have you all had any discussions with them on how their process has been, what that experience has been like?
No.
No?
haven't, yeah. I did talk to my, after our last meeting, you know, we talked about the lotto and that, and I did call my field office, and talk to him, and we were, talking about the lotto, and he'd said a lot of the housing authorities do the lotto
Mm-hmm.
just because you don't have your waiting outside.
Sure, sure. I mean, that sounds like the way
Yeah.
you used to get sneakers. You got to sit there by 9, before 9 to get your
Yes.
sneakers. I get that. That's not a very equitable process
Right.
as somebody who used to do it. Yeah, I wanted to know, you know, for the people who had
Yes.
been on the waiting list for a while, how that's factored in, like the time on the waiting list to make sure it's the most equitable. But it sounds like the actual lottery doesn't factor in any of that. It's just
Mhm.
completely randomized.
Right.
And is the database that we put all this information in and then actually conducts the lottery, is that owned by HUD?
No.
No?
It's a software. I mean, it's called Lindsay Software who we have, and it's by HUD rules and regulations, what they
Okay.
have to go by, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? Ms. Wagner, thank you. And those with you for staying up late with us. For us, this is an early night, but we appreciate it. And now have a much better grasp of the details and the amount of work and what it takes to manage just this part,
Yes.
let alone the units themselves and it's everything else. So thank you all.
Yeah, if I can echo that, obviously, Ms. Wagner, thank you for all your answers to our questions, both this time and last time. And I really look forward to, you know, really following up with you, especially about those legislative asks and how
Yes.
the feds can better
Yes.
help us.
Yes.
But most importantly, you know, to our commissioners, this is my first time really getting to like see y'all face to face in this capacity. And so, to the people who are tenants as well, like mad respect for you to actually come out and do something based on your experience and how to make it easier for people who are also similar and sharing similar experiences. And for all of y'all, just putting in that time for free on top of all of your other responsibilities. And it sounds like y'all really have a heart in it. I appreciate that. Our people are better for it. And I really look forward to continue working with y'all because we couldn't do this by ourselves without y'all. So
Thank you.
appreciate y'all taking the time on a Thursday in the afternoon. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. And with that,
I think we had some great dialogue here today, and I'm glad to meet all of y'all. It's been very productive of a meeting. I learned so much what y'all do and what it takes. I just want to echo what my colleagues said. Thank you very much.
Can I say something?
you bet.
I do want to, Nancy is an employee. She's a resident service manager and pretty much my assistant. She does a wonderful job with interacting with our residents. Do you mind if some of the things that they have brought in, do you mind if she reads through that?
Certainly.
Please, just,
Give her the
I
microphone.
mean, it's great. Here, you can have it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nancy Morales. So I take really a lot of pride in our resident services department. We have changed the whole dynamic of it. We have a lot of different things that have been happening and going on. And I'm just gonna share a few things with you guys. What we do in the services department is we provide a wide variety of direct services and referrals, but we make sure we follow through them and things, are getting done. And for example, we have last year was the first year that we were able to provide the hygiene closet with Superior Health Plan. And so we had about 739 residents, and also Hays County community also could stop and get things from the hygiene closet. We provided some dances for our elderly. We had 4 theme-based dances for them, and we had about 140 elderly that came to these dances where they got to dance and they got to socialize and kind of really build that community. We also partnered with the Core Force. So this is our 3rd year participating and really changing that dynamic with our youth, with positive youth development. We go to the conferences, like last night we were at Greater Youth San Marcos. I get the bus or the van and take them over there. And we really have focused on bringing that positive youth development and their voices to be heard. We also, have our teen night, our after-school program, and our summer program. We were trying to bring back meals for our youth, but because of the transportation of Capital Area Food Bank, we're not on that route. I did fill out an application to get non-perishable items. Our Springtown Villa property, since November, we've been able to bring fresh fruits, fresh meats, fresh vegetables. So twice a month, they have like a storefront where they come in like they're shopping at the store and go around in a U, select items they need or are interested in. We have about 60 units there, and 45 residents are participating in that. And then whatever we have left over, we're able to take to Allen Woods and to CM Allen and provide to our families, which we always have leftover items. We are working on bringing that food pantry also to Allen Woods at Bold Center. And so we've really changed the dynamic. There's so many things that have been going on. Hays County Sheriff's Department provided, gifts for kids, new toys and stuff for youth in December. And we also were able to, every year I give them used jackets, and they're very grateful for that. And this December, we were able to provide brand new jackets and shoes for 150 youth. So right now, just to give you an idea, we have about 611 households, including elderly and disabled, that live in public housing. And we have about 411 youth that live in housing. And so we've done a lot of different things, and we continue to try to partner. Salvation Army was the first year we did an angel tree for elderly, where they got Texas State students and professors to donate gifts to them for Christmas. We also have the dance class from Texas State that comes over every Friday to come and one-on-one, they learn a lesson and they dance, and it's refreshing to see them, doing this, and it's just interacting and social isolation, improving that, right? So we have a lot of different initiatives going on. You guys can stop by anytime, any of our centers, and come and check out what we got going on. We have calendars. We also started the digital literacy classes, where we're working with our elderly, learning how to maneuver on a computer, the mouse. One of our residents is like, look, Nancy, I can type my name, so there's a lot of nutrition, health and wellness. We have a lot of different things going out on through the Resident Services Department. So National Night Out in October, we will continue to try to add more agencies and vendors and come out and support us and see us, visit.
That's
But,
absolutely fantastic. So thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else anyone wants to say?
On the services I saw in the document that Ms. Wagner filled out, just, and it was kind of mentioned in the comments today, but I just suggested to our city manager that, definitely we need to have I forget her new
Community
title.
Resources.
Yeah, Grisel. Maybe partner with y'all and kind of better understand, so the residents can also understand the resources available to them. I know when I did some work with CAD, we would literally go block walk and pass the flyers out, and some of like the volunteers from Texas State would do such too. So if there's any like printable resources that the city can provide on utility assistance, like it was mentioned in those things, let us know. And if y'all need volunteers to help block walk and give those out, let me know. But
Okay.
thank you for all your work.
Thank you. And Griselda did come out to our bigger sites to share the city, because the 5-year plan, right, to get feedback. So
Mayor, the only thing I wanted to say is just, I think it's great to have the dialogue. Thank y'all for everything that you do as a board, because it matters and it's important. And I think the dialogue that council, what you're hearing is because I think one of the things that's very difficult for us as a community is because so much of our property is tax exempt. Because of, us being a university community. And then, also with having some of these properties that we have and so it's just really trying to make sure council wants to ensure that it really is providing the benefits to our residents and people who really need housing, because we're not getting the tax revenue, but we want to ensure that, again, it's not anybody, especially like with Section 8, the vouchers and things like that, because if there are market rates and our market is a lot higher because of the other populations that are included in that, and we know that our living wages are not at that same level. So it's just trying to understand that we're getting the most benefit for our community, given the fact that we don't get the tax revenue, right? And so that's the trade-off, is that, okay, we don't get the tax revenue, but we want to ensure that it's not anybody who is taking advantage, and not that the housing authority is, but like the Section 8, when it's private development, it's a little bit different. But that's what you're hearing is just really, again, from our council, who have a genuine concern for wanting to see how to best partner and how to best make sure that we're providing the valuable needs that we need to for our community. So thank y'all very
Yeah.
much for the dialogue.
And to be clear, it's not your properties that I'm concerned about. It's
No.
these new ones
Correct.
and
Well,
whatever is going on
if
there.
is a concern, we would like to know, because we will take care of it.
I think we've been clear this evening. All right, I think this has been really productive. Maybe we should do this more often. So, this is great. I think I think we learned stuff. I think you learned stuff from
Absolutely.
our perspective.
Yes,
And anytime you learn something, it's a good day.
you're
So
right.
thank you all. And we are now adjourned at
30.
8:30.
Okay. Thank you, ladies.